Compact Chevy trucks have carved out a place in history for over 50 years now, building a base of passionate fans. From humble beginnings through the almost glory days of the 80s and 90s, the trucks have grown in size, capability, power, and style. Welcome back to All Cars, y'all. If you're new here, my name is John, and this is a far too brief history of the Chevy S10. Of course, our story starts before the S10 in the dark days of the 70s. Chevy, of course, offered different trims and package options on their full-size trucks to appeal to different wallets through the years, and mostly through the 60s, they did offer the car-based Ute, the El Camino, first based on the full-size Brookwood station wagon and then later on the mid-sized Chevelle. But the S10 story starts back in the 70s, when, in 1963, Isuzu introduced their truck called the Wasp, based on their Bellet sedan with either a 1.3-liter gas or a 1.8-liter diesel engine and 1.5-liter engines in export markets. Too small for the marketplace, it was replaced with the Faster. This was available between 1972 and 2002 through 3 generations, and was once again based on an Isuzu sedan with shared front ends. Seeing the opportunity, Chevy quickly brought it to the US as the Chevy LUV, a light utility vehicle, and in 1972 in response to similar offerings from Datsun and Toyota. With a ladder frame, independent front suspension, and leaf spring rear axle, a 102.4-inch wheelbase, and in 1978, optional four-wheel drive and double cab options, the Faster was competitive in its niche. Outside the US, power came from a 1.6-liter engine making about 92 horsepower or a 2-liter diesel making 62, but as the Chevy LUV, the only engine was a 1.8-liter making 75 horsepower. At launch, it also competed with the similarly imported Ford Courier by Mazda. Since the chicken tax imposed a 25% tariff on imported trucks, the LUV was brought in as a chassis and the bed attached later. The exterior was updated in '74, and in 1976 a 3-speed automatic was offered, and front disc brakes were added. Power was massaged up to 80 horsepower in '77, and by '78, sales were up to over 171,000. Four-wheel drive was added in '79, and it subsequently won Motor Trend's Truck of the Year. Sales for this generation peaked at over 100,000 units. The short-lived second generation launched as a 1981 model following the Isuzu update, with the same gas engine making 80 horsepower, but a new 2.2-liter Isuzu diesel making 58 horsepower and 93 pound-feet of torque. This generation added the double and eventually space cab models with an all-new body but based on the same chassis, and only sold in the 1981 and 1982 model years as a Chevy before the release of the S10. With the LUV being expensive and complex to import to get around the chicken tax, GM began developing their own domestic compact pickup truck to replace it. Released as an '82 model, this first generation lasted through 1993 and utilized parts of the front suspension and brakes from the respected GM G-body cars. The truck was also released as a GMC, designated the S15, and later as the Sonoma. The base engine of their new truck was a 1.9-liter Isuzu 4-cylinder used in the LUV and an optional 2.8-liter V6. In 1983, an extended cab was introduced called the Maxi Cab, and four-wheel drive was added along with a 2-liter 4-cylinder from the Cavalier line and Isuzu's 2.2-liter diesel. Also in '83, the S10 Blazer, based on the same platform, was introduced. This compact sport utility beat both Ford and Jeep into the market. It should be noted that the S10 was the first domestically built compact pickup truck. In 1985, the 2-liter was replaced with the 2.5-liter Iron Duke engine, and in '86, the truck lost the 2.2-liter diesel and the 1.9-liter Isuzu engines, while in 1988, a 4.3-liter V6 was thankfully added. From '89 to '91, the S10 had a Baja package that added roll bar, lights, front tubular guard, decals, and more to any four-wheel drive package. Also, the Cameo and Cameo EL were offered on 2-wheel drive models with exterior bling, along with other appearance packages such as the Top Gun and Backcountry editions. It must be mentioned that GMC offered the high-performance Cyclone version of the truck in 1991 with all-wheel drive, four-wheel anti-lock brakes, and a turbocharged version of the 4.3-liter engine making 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. They also released an SUV version with the same powertrain called the Typhoon. This was also the first production truck with four-wheel anti-lock brakes, and in testing could do 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, faster than a Ferrari 348 of the time. In '92, GMC offered the Sonoma GT with an enhanced but not turbocharged 4.3-liter, making 195 horsepower and 260 foot-pounds, automatic and limited slip differential. Not as intense as the Cyclone, it retained its payload and towing ratings as a truck. For the '94 model year, the second generation of the S10 released with new aero styling lasting through 2004 in the US. Thankfully, the Iron Duke and 2.8-liter V6 were canceled, the 4.3-liter V6 upgraded, and a new corporate 2.2-liter four-cylinder added, and special models like the Sonoma GT at GMC were canceled. It remained largely based on the first-generation chassis, but overall was improved with better suspension and axles. For this redesign in '94, the SS package was released, available only in black, white, or apple red. Utilizing the 4.3-liter V6 with between 180 and 200 horsepower, it included a limited slip diff, lowered suspension, and cosmetic differences. Also introduced was the ZR2 off-road package with a more robust suspension and more ground clearance. In '96, the 4.3-liter was updated with a strengthened block and new heads, now being the Vortex series of engines. A third door was added on the extended cab models along with a new sports side bed option. For '98, the exterior, interior, and brakes of the truck and the 2.2-liter engine were refreshed, replacing the previous SS with the Extreme package. Finally, in 2001, a crew cab option was introduced, 3 years before the Silverado models got it, but limited only to the four-wheel drive models with an automatic. By 2004, cab options were simplified, leaving just the crew cab model. Interestingly, the GM and Isuzu partnership came full circle when in 1996 Isuzu replaced its own pup with a version of the S10 known as the Hombre, which was actually based on the Brazilian version of the S10. A slow seller, it was canceled in 2000. Also interestingly, there were several EV versions of the S10 over its life. In 1993, Selectria offered the E10, an electric conversion, and US Electricar offered one in 1994. Introduced in 1997, GM began offering the S10 Electric as the first electric pickup from an OEM, but it only lasted a couple of years until 1998. Based on the regular cab, short box S10 but reconfigured as a front-wheel drive truck, it replaced the engine with a 114 horsepower motor based on GM's EV1 project. At introduction, it had lead-acid batteries with 16.2 kilowatt hours, giving it a range of about 47 miles in mixed driving and governed to a top speed of 70. In 1998, the batteries were upgraded to a new nickel metal hydride battery as an option with 29 kilowatt hours and around 95 miles of range in mixed driving. While the rest of the lineup got its exterior refresh, the Electric kept the older style. After the S10 was discontinued in the US for 2004, it continued to be built in Brazil in 2012 when it became a Brazilian version of the then Colorado. For the US market, the new Colorado was created as a joint design venture with GM, GM Brazil, and Isuzu. Harkening back to their 1970s agreement, Isuzu now brought their version to the US in the I-Series in late 2005, all based on the GMT 355 platform that was itself the basis of the Hummer H3. For Isuzu, available models were the i280 and the i350 depending on engine, and outside the US, most trucks were produced in Thailand, with the US vehicles being made in Shreveport to, once again, circumvent the chicken tax. With available rear-wheel or four-wheel drive, manual or automatic transmissions, and standard extended and crew cab options, the Colorado came with a 2.8-liter i4 as standard or a 3.5-liter i5 as an option. Beds were either 6 foot or 5 foot based on the extended or crew cab option selected. Initially offered with 3 trim levels of base, LS, and LT, it also offered 3 suspension setups with the base Z85, a Z71 off-road setup that added a locking rear diff, and a ZQ8 sports suspension available only on the 2-wheel drive models. That ZQ8 also offered an Extreme Edition with multiple cosmetic upgrades to the exterior. For 2007, the truck was facelifted and engines were upsized with a new 2.9-liter i4 engine and a 3.7-liter i5, along with exterior updates. In model year 2009, the truck was facelifted again with a new 5.3-liter V8 option producing 300 horsepower. Multiple other changes to the interior, including audio systems, wheels, and infotainment, continued. A strong seller, sales peaked in 2005 at over 163,000 units, passing the Ranger and close to the Tacoma sales. Production of this model ended in 2012. The next generation of the Colorado debuted in 2011 in Buenos Aires and later in Frankfurt, showing GM's aspirations for the truck in the international market. It debuted for the US in 2013 at the LA Auto Show with a different exterior design from the international versions, a lighter frame, longer, and more similar to the contemporary Silverado, and set for a 2015 model year delivery. Initially available with either the 2.5-liter Ecotec i4 or 3.6-liter V6, it later added a 2.8-liter i4 Duramax diesel as an option in 2016, a first in the segment. 3 cab and bed combinations were offered, an extended cab with a 6.2-foot bed, a crew cab with 5.2-foot bed, or 6.2-foot as an option. Available trim lines were the base, work truck, LT, Z71, and ZR2 off-road performance package, debuting in 2017. A 6-speed manual transmission was available until 2019 when the 6-speed auto was made standard. Various upgrades were applied over the year, including larger infotainment screens, Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, backup cameras, and more, and in 2021 the base trim was eliminated, leaving just 4, along with a refresh of the exterior. For the third generation, it was now available only in quad cab and with a single 5-foot bed length on a longer 3.1-inch wheelbase and with a standard 2.7-liter turbocharged L3B engine shared with the Silverado. Built on largely the same chassis as the full-size Silverado, its sole engine was offered with multiple power outputs and multiple trim lines, but in all a crew cab configuration. Early indications are the redesign and upgrades did not help the Colorado's sales in the market. Worth mentioning here is the SSR offered between 2003 and 2006. While based on GM's midsize GMT 368 SUV platform, it's notable for being a ute as well as a performance model. Packed with the 5.3-liter Vortec V8 making 300 horsepower, it was good for a 7.7-second 0-60 run, and by 2005 it had the 390 horsepower engine found in the C6 Corvette. The SSR was intended to harken back to the 1940s advanced design trucks. In spite of significant marketing efforts, the SSR sold poorly, and by 2006 it was canceled, with an estimated 24,000 produced. While some of those early Chevy trucks could be considered small by our standards today, at the time they were thoroughly competitive as full-size trucks. And when Datsun and Toyota came out with a smaller truck in the late 60s, early 70s, it took the domestic manufacturers by surprise at the demand there was for it. They had nothing to compete, so they reached into their corporate hierarchy and plucked things from their affiliates, and in this case Isuzu became the Chevy LUV, and it's a surprisingly respected truck to this day. And while trucks have gotten larger over time, and as a matter of fact there is an argument that the compact trucks of today are close to the size of the full-size trucks of the 80s and early 90s, there's still smaller trucks out there that don't come to America, such as the Montana, and car-based pickups such as the 83 Chevy 500 in Latin America. The side projects like the SSR, even well-equipped, failed to grab consumers' attention, and slowing sales of regular cab and extended cabs changed the marketplace for GM, moving them and other manufacturers to offering only quad cabs and in ever shorter truck bed options. I think, and I've been outspoken, that I still believe there's a market out there for a smaller, simpler truck. Whether it's for home use or whether delivery services or small construction companies, but they don't bring them here, and obviously market research is telling them that there's not the market that I see from myself and from other people as well. I like where the compact trucks have gone. They're just not compact anymore. And I look forward to a day when maybe we recapture some of that earliness of the S10 and the Chevy LUV. And I hope you're with me on that. I appreciate you being here, and I want to give a special thanks to all of my Patreons. You help make this possible. And if you like this video, please show it some love. Thumbs up, subscribe, notification. And if you support independent automotive content, histories, and news opinions like this, please show the channel some love. Thanks for being here.